Get video rolling. So I want to talk about the times when I want to first get into heavy metal music before me thrash, before getting into the much more extreme stuff. You know, it's like there's some sort of a musical history, which I think is very important for me. You know, it was certainly a fun formative stages of getting into a certain new world sort of thing, and I thought my world changed when I heard this kind of music, and I don't, you know, I want to talk about the influences that came before thrash and all the bands that were around before and that sort of thing. I didn't want to talk too much about in a sort of linear history. I didn't want to talk about that sort of thing where this kind of music came before this and that. I mean, these bands I'm talking about were certainly part of that. Not necessarily in any kind of official sense where this was the kind of music this was the kind of scene and then that. But these bands were around in the time, sort of thing, but they're personal favourites of mine, or the ones that I got. Now, I first started listening to actual heavy metal music in, I'd say about 87, 88. 88, I would say. It's been a long time now. It's 30 plus years. But, you know, long, good history, that one. So, there are a few records that really stuck with me before getting into the extreme stuff. And well, I've got quite a few piles in here in jumbled up order of records. So the first one I ever got was this little ditty here. If I can avoid the light glare again. Iron Maiden's Power Slave. The inner sleeve there. I love showing the inner sleeves because, you know, the picture of the bands, the lyrics, all that sort of thing. It's all part of the fun of records, and they had it, and like I said, in cassettes. In the later editions that came out in the 80s, they started putting in the pictures of the bands, the lyrics, all that kind of thing. That's the lyrics there. Nice sort of artistic backdrop, and there they are, the Maiden guys. And this was all totally new to me, and I couldn't believe how heavy. I'd heard a couple of songs on the radio. I thought they definitely rocked, you know, but it's like as soon as you start to hear the rest of the album stuff, it's like, oh, all systems go. It's like, I can't believe what I'm hearing, you know. And so it's from that point I pretty much went out and bought every single creaky chair here. Every single Maiden album that I possibly could. I didn't necessarily complete the works at that point, but I got about 5 or 6, and then I thought it's time to change, and I'll go get to that bit in a bit as well. Peace of Mind, love this album, and I'll tell you what, this really opened up another soundscape for me. Particularly where it all goes together. It's not just what you hear, it's what you feel, it's what you see. All your senses are totally consumed by this fucking light glare. Consumed by the light glare, no way. But just a picture of the band all sat around ready to eat a roast dinner. There's actually a brain. Hence the title, Peace of Mind. We're not going to have peace of mind, I think. And this is when they just recruited Nico McBrain from Out of Trust, when he joined Iron Maiden there. That's the producer, Martin Birch, and Derek Riggs, the artist. You know, I mean, if it hadn't been for Derek Riggs, I think that heavy metal album covers would be very, very boring, which I'm so glad they ain't. You know, I mean, it's like comic book art sort of thing. It's like fantasy art, that kind of. It's the way how it's an extension of the music, and it's an extension of the expression, artistic expression, you know. So anyway, I'll try and get through this quickly, because otherwise I've done a test of this video and it's very, very long. I don't want to do it too long now. So okay, and get a guitar here, ringing a string out. I took the guitars. now, previous to heavy metal, I was getting into rock sort of thing. Queen were one band I really liked, and I loved Brian May's playing, and I thought he was the pretty much the best until I heard, none other than Ingrid Malmsteen, another guitarist to follow like Tony McAlpine and Steve Vai and of course Randy Rhoads or KK and Glenn and all that. But this dude was like, to me, he was like I mean, I don't know whether he is the fastest or not, and it doesn't really matter, but he's got an exceptional shred style, I think, There's a backdrop. He had a bit of a revolving door of different band members, different from other. Joe Lynn Turner. I think Joe Lynn Turner was also in Deep Purple at one point. I don't know. So, anyway. And then other bands of the era that I certainly got to know on a grapevine, particularly where they would get stuff in the charts, the national charts of pop, that is Wasp. Now, at the time that I first heard of Wasp, they just about to release they released a song called Mean Man, and of course I didn't hear the uncut version of it. I heard the censored version because it was on the telly, and it's like I would hear their uncut version because I'm a mean motherfucking man, etc. Oh, fucking hell, yeah, let's have some of that, let's have some more. But anyway, I found this one a shock because I wanted to hear, and I looked at the date of release of this, 1984, so I thought, oh, fucking hell, got some history here. So this turned out to be my absolute favourite Wasp album of all time. And it still is to this day. It's just a raw, pure hard rock, nothing less. Just pure hard rock, heavy metal record it really is. So, Wasp, there we go. Now, into the thrash metal thing that I was, and wanting to get more extreme stuff and just more and more thrash bands and whatever, and get totally serious about it. But I also went back into history because it's like upon reading about this stuff and talking about reading about it in magazines and that sort of thing, I will do another video later on magazines that I read to actually learn about all this kind of stuff and to get totally into it, to really fired up by it. But you read about previous influences that bands like Exodus or Testament or Creator, Destruction, what bands they listened to when they were young kids, So I would think, right, I've got to learn more about this history, And so, and I'd already heard of this band on the grapevine as a young kid getting into rock. Motorhead and Iron Fist. I mean, that's pretty much my favourite album by these guys. Well, this is the last album with a classic lineup. Eddie Clark playing guitar, Filthy Animal Taylor, and of course none other than who, Lemmy. But this was the last one with a classic trio. Right, so Motorhead there. So getting through the records fairly quick now, and of course I would learn more about certain bands that I already knew the names of. Now, friends of my parents, they were the same age group, so they all sort of grew up on classic 70s hard rock and heavy metal stuff that was around then. So I would hear of, it's like I already knew of Black Sabbath, but I didn't know about any of their actual stuff. So they'd lend me tapes and what have you. They'd lend me stuff to listen to. So this, it's like, and I would read about Black Sabbath being quite an important influence. And this is a pretty damn unbelievably heavy album, and it's like 1972 this was released, I think it was, or 1971. But either way, it's pretty damn ahead of its time for how filthy, dirty, heavy. And I'd learn Ozzy Osbourne was in the band also, and of course I would hear his name on the grapevine, and I would see a song of his on MTV. I thought it was off their, I think it was Crazy Babies. Yeah, it was Crazy Babies that I first heard. But then I'd start scouring for records as you do as time goes on. And I found this, and and the first guitar, I was always impressed with the guitar players they had in the band, he had with him. So look on the back there. inner sleeves, they rock. They really do, you know. Or they certainly do when they're done like this, you know. Lyrics, that sort of thing. But yeah, the guitar players. The first one I heard about was Zach Wilde, because the late 80s are coming into it. But I didn't realise he had some other greats, like, you know, Jakey Lee was on this record. And of course, I'd hear other names like Brad Gillis, who stepped in for a while. But the ultimate, Randy Rhoads, I mean, it was like, and how he died in a plane crash and all that sort of thing. Oh my God. But, you know, I'd learn, I mean, if you want, you know, for me, learning about great guitar players, Ozzy Osbourne had some exceptional people in his band. He really did, you know. Hey, what else we got down here? Judas Priest I already got into early, but into it at an earlier time. I bought one of their more late 80s album. It was the one before Painkiller. It was a good album, but then I'd start to hear stuff like this, and I was told of an album called Killing Machine, which in America it's named Hellbent for Leather, which is a song off this album, of course. And yeah, what can I say about it? I mean, this really opened up some more doors that I didn't know about Judas Priest. You know, about what they sounded like and that, and it's like, yeah. So upon listening to all these, upon being shown the way into this history of heavy metal music before thrash, leading, you know, and it's like, yeah, I you read about the influences by these bands, who their heroes were, and it all becomes clear, because getting into this kind of music that there's, you know, it's like where did it all come from? You know, it's like, who did it first, or who, you know, what did they, you know, who were they influenced by, that sort of thing. It's like, and you get these, and you certainly get these records now. And I want to get to a last interesting bit here. The new wave of British heavy metal scene, band called Angel Witch, and this is pretty much Angel Witch are pretty much my favourite of the lot in that scene, you know. And again, I would read about this band, or I would find out about it, that sort of thing. And this is their self-titled debut album, and yeah, and don't always know what to say when I'm talking about this, but it was such a fun sort of. It's great to sort of live for the sort of like roots of where it came from and that sort of thing, and it just opens many more doors there, sort of thing, and that's where you learn about what drove it, that sort of thing, you know. And there was, and but anyway, horns up.